10 harsh realities shaping our future. My name is Andrew Stotz of the Become a Better Investor community, where we help you create, grow, and protect your wealth in a world full of complexity and distractions. Let's get into this. Remember that this is for informational purposes only. This is not investment advice or a recommendation. Number one, politicians created the mess we are in. They kept interest rates too low for too long. They shut down global economies, destroying supply chains and reducing the supply of goods. They borrowed to finance massive spending. They produced unparalleled money printing. They bailed out the bond market in 2020, which I believe will eventually lead to a stock market bailout. They allowed war to escalate, causing food shortages. Number two, the Fed is going to crash the market. The Fed pumped up the stock market with a decade of ultra-low interest rates. This low interest rate policy incentivized borrowing, leading to corporate malinvestment. And now the Fed is raising rates into what looks to be a recession. Don't worry about taking notes. You can get the cheat sheet I made of all the content in this presentation for free by just going to this QR code or clicking on the link in the description area. Number three, Europe, especially Germany, is destroying itself. Germany and Europe had no reason to stop oil and gas from Russia. In fact, they had been improving commercial relationships. Remember, despite what any politician says, trade amongst people and businesses and countries brings peace. Germany's transition to green energy didn't produce the energy needed to replace its wind down of fossil fuels and nuclear power. And finally, rising energy prices are crippling German industry and consumers, and it's not coming down anytime soon. I just read an article that said that the Russians are exporting gas and oil particularly oil, to India at a below market price. India is getting it, refining it, and sending it back to Germany at double the price. It's crazy. Number three, it's a U.S.-Russia, not a Russia-Ukraine showdown. The U.S. sees Russia as its arch enemy and has been closing in on it since the 1991 breakup of the Soviet Union. Since 2008, the U.S., through its proxy, NATO, has been trying to get on Russia's borders by bringing Georgia and Ukraine into NATO. In fact, on April 3, 2008, the Bucharest Summit Declaration, paragraph 23 said, NATO welcomes Ukraine's and Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations for membership in NATO. Today, we make clear that we support these countries' applications for membership action plan. That was the trigger that set off where we are today. And it was interesting to see that Sarkozy of France and Merkel of Germany were against this declaration, but it was the U.S., particularly Bush, that pushed this hard. So, don't be deceived by U.S. concern for Ukraine. Did I say Bush? I meant Obama. Ukraine is just a means for the U.S. to get at Russia. Now, number five, governments pushed 100 million people into poverty and starvation. Global economy lockdowns initiated by governments were estimated to have pushed 100 million people into poverty, as many as 70 million of them in India. Instead of negotiating peace, experts expect that the continued war in Ukraine will push 100 million people into starvation, most of them in Africa. All the while, the rich get richer at a faster pace. Look at this article from The Guardian. The 400 richest Americans added $4.5 trillion to their wealth last year, meaning 2020, a 40% rise. 2021, same thing. Number six, America openly states that China is enemy number one. China had considerable respect for America and U.S. capitalism. In fact, it helped pull China out of poverty. And they benefit from being a friend, not an enemy, of the U.S. The U.S. State Department, the Department of Defense, now openly states that China is America's number one enemy. In fact, I took this from the Department of Defense website, which says the department will act urgently to sustain and strengthen deterrence with People's Republic of China as our most consequential strategic competitor. That, again, comes from the website of the U.S. Department of Defense. Number 6, well, before I get to ending number 6, I expect that the U.S. is going to pursue this policy until it provokes a war with China. That could be a year away, it could be 10 years away, but the U.S. is not going to stop on this. Number 7, the U.S., not China, is the biggest global threat. Let's talk about Taiwan and Hong Kong. First, the U.S. recognizes Taiwan as part of China. The January 1979 declaration from the U.S. said that the U.S. recognized the People's Republic of China as the sole legal government of China and acknowledged but did not endorse that Taiwan is a part of China. So officially, the U.S. doesn't recognize Taiwan as a separate nation. Of course, they're giving support to Taiwan, but my point that I'm making is that China is not having expansionary goals. They see it as a part of China. Next, Hong Kong. There's a lot of things that can be disturbing about what's been going on in Hong Kong. But Hong Kong, again, was forcibly taken by the British and eventually handed back to China. Remember, Hong Kong was established as a colony of the British Empire in 1841. So Taiwan and Hong Kong are not evidence to me that China's trying to expand across the globe. However, I do have evidence about the U.S. Since 1986, the U.S. has participated and interfered in the replacement of foreign governments in the following countries. From Afghanistan to the Congo, they have been involved in big ways, in small ways, overtly and covertly. It's a sad history of American intervention. Number 8, world leaders are not nearly as wise as they may appear. First of all, the Greens of Germany got it wrong. They thought that green energy was going to replace fossil fuels and nuclear. It didn't. What about pharmaceuticals? Well, we can see that regulators of this industry may have put the companies they regulate above the people they represent. In fact, Big Pharma spends massively on lobbying politicians and media ads. In addition, I would say that the regulators are captured 96% of the budget of the Australian pharma regulators is funded by the pharma industry. That's 89% in Europe, 86% in the UK, 85% in Japan, and 65% in the US. Are these independent agencies that are protecting our needs? Probably not. And I have evidence. Since 2000, the industry has been fined $87 billion. And it's not fines for mistakes or something. There's serious wrongdoing by this industry, and you can find it online pretty much everywhere. There's a website called violationtracker.goodjobfirst.org, and that place has amazing tracking of this. Also, Fed officials aren't as smart as they appear. I mean, who would have thought that you could have government technocrats set, for instance, the price of a mobile phone? We would never expect that they would be able to do that. So why do we think that they can set the price of money? Yet they do. And here we can see that Yellen and Powell both said that inflation was transitory, and now they're saying that a recession isn't coming. I think it is. They think it's not. Hopefully I'm right. I'm wrong and they're right. Finally, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out. Econ 101 taught us that a reduction in the supply of goods, which happened during a shutdown, and an increase in the money supply, which happened during this crisis, both cause inflation. And they don't know it. They don't see it. Number 9, mass refugee influx is being used as a political tool to cause social disruption. Look at Europe, mainly Germany. They've been absorbing refugees fleeing from mostly U.S. conflicts, like Afghanistan, like Libya, like all of these different places, Iraq, and other places that America has been in, Syria also. So also in America, the U.S. Democrat Party, basically that still controls the House, the Senate, and the presidency, are allowing massive migration across the southern border of the U.S. In April of 2022, more than 250,000 people entered the U.S. illegally. That's the highest in a single month in recorded U.S. history. In fact, it's 1,376% increased from April of 2020 under the Trump administration. And famine, finally, is going to increase the migration flows from Africa. Remember, if you want to get all of this information, just download the cheat sheet for free, and you can get this whole presentation in one page. And finally, number 10, Germany is rearming after 77 years after World War II. Remember that the world disarmed Germany through the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. And Germany was broken into 4 zones after World War II, led by Americans, British, French, and Soviets. And from 1945, after World War II, the Allies destroyed Germany's military equipment, shut down Germany's army, and shut down Germany's industrial capacity related to war. And then, all of a sudden, in 2022, the German government approved a 100 billion euro military defense budget that was double 2021. And to achieve this, they needed to amend the German constitution and have 2/3 majority in both chambers of parliament. Everybody's on the bandwagon for Germany rearming. This makes Germany the 3rd largest military spender in the world. So let's summarize. Number 1, politicians created the mess we are in. Number 2, the Fed is going to crash the market. Number 3, Europe, especially Germany, is destroying itself. Number 4, it's a U.S.-Russia, not a Russia-Ukraine showdown. Number 5, governments push 100 million people into poverty and starvation. Number 6, America openly states that China is enemy number 1. Number 7, the U.S., not China, is the biggest global threat. Number 8, world leaders are not nearly as wise as they may appear. And number 9, mass refugee influx is being used as a political tool to cause social disruption. And finally, number 10, Germany is rearming 77 years after World War II. My name is Andrew Stotz, and feel free to leave your comment in the notes below and go to the description to download the cheat sheet.